2003, Thomas and Friends. Thomas helps out. Interactive play a sound. It's morning, and Thomas wakes to hear that his whistle doesn't sound well at all. He tries and tries, but he cannot get the whistle to peep the way it should. Sir Topham Hatt hears all the noise. Thomas, an engine on my railroad should not sound like that. Please see the mechanic and have that whistle fixed. The idea of visiting the mechanic worries Thomas a little. He has not been to the mechanic before, but like a useful engine, he starts off to the repair shed. Thomas does not get very far before he finds Percy. Percy had run off his track and threw a buffer. "Can you help me, Thomas?" asked Percy. "I'm feeling a little stuck." Thomas backs up and pulls Percy up onto the track. "Thanks, Thomas," explains Percy with a whistle. "Being back on track feels great." Thomas tries to whistle back. "Sounds like you should have your whistle fixed, Thomas," says Percy. Thomas remembers he must visit the mechanic and feels worried again. "I know," says Thomas. "I'm on my way back right now." Just ahead sits Bertie. Thomas whistles a hello. "Oh, Thomas, I am glad to see you," says Bertie, "although you sound as bad as I feel. I am overheated and unable to get back to the garage." Thomas's driver offers some of Thomas's water to refill Bertie's radiator. Bertie is thankful. Thomas lets out a silly-sounding goodbye toot on his whistle as he begins off again. As Thomas passes the docks, he sees Salty. Harvey and Cranky all hard at work. "Thomas," says Salty in his rough voice, "if you do not mind, I'll ask you to help us unload this freighter. It just came in a few minutes ago." "And if you do not mind, Salty, I'd be glad to help," says Thomas with a wink. Thomas helps move the dockside cars until all the freight is unloaded. "Many thanks to you," says Salty. "Come again any time, and next time I won't make you work so hard." Along the way, Thomas comes upon Henry, a heavy train. "I'll bet Henry needs some help getting that train over Gordon's Hill," thinks Thomas. Thomas tries to get Henry's attention, but Henry cannot hear Thomas's broken whistle. Finally, Henry hears. "You look like you could use a hand," said Thomas. "I would appreciate some help," said Henry. "Would you give me a push?" Thomas gets behind the last car in the train and begins to push. With both engines working together, soon Henry is at the top of the hill. "Thank you, Thomas," toots Henry as he begins the downhill run. "For a little engine with not much of a whistle, you certainly are a big help." As Thomas passes the quarry, he hears Mavis. "Thomas! Thomas!" calls Mavis. "What is it?" Thomas asks her. "Would you be a dear and help me with these troublesome trucks? They're always a bother, but today they're being very bothersome. I'll bet you could show them a thing or two." "Certainly, Mavis," Thomas says with a peep of his whistle. When the truck hears Thomas' funny-sounding whistle, they begin to chuckle. This is not a nice thing to do, so Thomas gives them a big bump. The trucks then move for Thomas without any trouble. Soon all the trucks are in their proper places. "Thank you, Thomas," says Mavis. "If you ever need any help from me in return, please ask." "I would ask you to go to the mechanic in my place," moans Thomas, "because I really don't want to go, but I must. Goodbye." Thomas is moving past the quarry when Harold flies overhead. "Thomas, come quickly! I've spotted a broken bridge on the line, and I need your help to fix it." Thomas is glad for an important job to do and happy to put off his visit to the mechanic. He hurries with Harold to get supplies and workers to fix the bridge. At the bridge, Harold and the men get right to work. Harold lowers heavy beams for the men to fit into place. Thomas sees that Harold is lowering a heavy beam toward a worker on the bridge who doesn't see it. "Look out!" Thomas shouts. Thomas tries to warn the man with sharp blasts from his whistle, but it is too weak to be heard over Harold. At the last instant, the worker hears a foghorn from a nearby ship. He looks up and jumps to safety just in time. "Oh, dear! That man might have been badly hurt," thinks Thomas, "and all because I put off having my whistle fixed." Just as soon as the job is done, Thomas takes off to the mechanic's repair shed. Thomas wonders if fixing his whistle is going to hurt. The mechanic sees that Thomas is a little afraid. "Well, Thomas," smiles the mechanic, "Sir Topham Hatt said you were coming today. Let's have a look at that broken whistle of yours." The mechanic looks at Thomas's whistle. Thomas is still a bit worried, so he asks, "Will it hurt to fix my whistle, Mr. Mechanic, sir?" "Hurt?" The mechanic laughs. "Not only will it not hurt, but it didn't hurt. Your whistle is fixed already, and you didn't even feel a thing. See? Give it a try." Thomas peeps out a loud whistle. He is so happy to have his old strong peep peep back, he lets out another happy whistle. Thomas returns to the engine shed. Sir Topham Hatt tells Thomas, "I'm pleased you got that whistle fixed. A really useful engine like you, Thomas, should never sound so silly." "I really was a silly little engine to have put off visiting the mechanic like I did," admits Thomas. "I shouldn't have been so afraid. He was only going to help me." "Just like you helped me and all the others today, Thomas," Percy adds. "That's right, Thomas," Sir Topham Hatt said.